Hey, and a big good evening to you as we welcome you outside of the football complex, the first two-a-day practice on the campus of the University of Alabama. We go through this mental grind. I think early on, when you talk about emotions, you talk about energy, I think it's very easy to get through the first couple of practices, but we're looking at 13 straight practices for Alabama. This is the first two-a-days. They let out this morning at 9:30, and then they're wrapping up the evening session starting at 7:30. So I think right now it's all about that mental grind. When you're 13 consecutive practices leading into that big scrimmage, and then Sunday will be an off day, and then they'll come back to the grind on Monday. They've got one more two-a-day this week, which is going to be on Thursday. Nick Saban's going to talk on tomorrow and wrap up. But just sharing a couple of observations. Reuben Foster told us earlier today that he's down to 225 pounds. He's going with a little bit slimmer look, and I think he's going to be quicker to the football if that can be imaginable for a couple of minutes. But you were able to see that when he put that together today. He said he played in the 240 range last year, so he's down to 225. Looking at those inside backers, when we start looking at depth, I think Ben Davis is one of those guys that jumps out. You obviously look at Rashaan Evans. Keith Holcomb is another football savvy guy. He's got that football intelligence, the high IQ to be able to make a lot of great decisions when you look at Keith Holcomb. So I think that's one. Rashaan Evans is another player that I'm going to keep my eye on. And I'm talking about the second string guys. We know Sean Deion Hamilton. We also know Reuben Foster, as we talked about losing some weight. We know what we can get out of them. But I think those second string guys will get a significant amount of playing time, and they'll be called upon several times throughout the season. So that'll be one of the things I'm sure we'll focus on. When you look at wide receivers, I'm still a little bit concerned. There's still some drops out there, and I think they've got to help these quarterbacks out. When you talk about confidence, we saw a lot of drops in that open practice, and some of those have continued this week. I think that needs to be cleaned up when you talk about the quarterbacks and you talk about that battle. I think it can give some boost of confidence for these quarterbacks. It's all counting down. All of this is mental preparation for the upcoming season. But more importantly than that right now is that scrimmage on Saturday. That is going to tell a lot about competitions. And it's not just quarterback. It's, who's going to be that fourth, fifth, sixth wide receiver, when you look at that unit, when you look at linebackers, when you look at outside guys, defensive line, depth, who's going to get those rotation, who's going to look good on that offensive line. Right now we seem to be a pretty stable when you look at Jonah Williams on the right tackle side. You look at Bradley Bozeman, one of the strongest on the team at that right guard position, Pierce Baker at center, and then Lester Cotton at left guard, and obviously the All-American candidate, the great player Cam Robinson at left tackle. So right now is about that mental grind. Can you get through this point of about halfway through the initial 13 practices? This is where that leadership is so important. When other players will call on the younger guys, hey, step forward. I know it's a mental grind, especially when you spend, 5 practices in 3 days. Two-a-days are very difficult mentally, but I think this is also a good test for Alabama and Nick Saban and the coaching staff, because they can see exactly who they can count on late in the football game to keep that mental IQ high to be able to focus on the task at hand and the attention to detail. Hey, I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hey, we've got wall-to-wall coverage of our daily programs here in Tuscaloosa that starts early in the morning, 6 a.m., and it runs until 8 p.m. So we're going to talk a lot of Alabama football on the on-air side, but also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like us on Facebook. Hey, I'm Ryan Fowler. An evening practice, the first of fall camp, two-a-days on the campus of the University of Alabama.